Welcome back. Developing news. We were with you just about 3 or 4 minutes ago. The judge had said called for a recess until the jury was done deliberating or they wanted to come out. We take a look at the newsroom feed right now. You can see that the family has walked back in the courtroom. Mr. Savage has just walked back in the courtroom as well.
We are still waiting to hear what is going on, expecting to hear from Judge Clifton Newman any moment, but gotta wonder if the jury is going to be coming back into the courtroom, if they perhaps have made a decision, whether it be a verdict or if they are deadlocked.
Well, you know, it's interesting. This morning there were 5 questions that the jury wanted answered. One was, why was voluntary manslaughter offered? What is sufficient legal provocation? What is imminent danger? Let's take a listen.
We as the jury regret to inform the court that despite the best efforts on all members, we are unable to come to a unanimous decision in the case of the state versus Michael Slager. So I'm going to bring the jury out and to declare a mistrial, give the state and the defense an opportunity to thank the jury if you desire.
Thank you, Judge.
Your Honor, with respect to our earlier request regarding potential double jeopardy on the retrial, would it be appropriate, having not experienced this before, to question the jury? I just don't know how that's done other than there's the double jeopardy argument if they've already reached a decision on the charges. Wisdom of the court.
We would object to that. And I believe in South Carolina that the law is when there's a mistrial, there's a mistrial. And the court is not to deal further as to splits or where they were on one charge versus another charge. And the parties are to be go back to square one as if this trial had never happened.
Inherent in the jury's indication that they're unable to reach a unanimous decision means they have not decided any charge. If they decided murder, they would have indicated that we unanimously find the defendant guilty of murder. If they found manslaughter, they would have indicated that. If they found not guilty, they would have indicated that. So I'm not going to inquire as to anything further other than declaring a mistrial.
Live downtown to our Lara Rolla, who's been on this case from the very beginning. She's joining us with more. Lara?
Hey there, Ashley, Dean. We're essentially in the exact same place we were on Friday, the point where the jury says they just can't reach a verdict, but this time the judge has declared a mistrial in this case, which, as you mentioned with our legal expert, could mean that the prosecution will choose to retry this case at some time in the future. Of course, we don't know how long that may take, but as of right now, there is a mistrial. And what you were talking about earlier, which I found very interesting, is last week we were all under the impression, according to the jury foreman's note, that there was only one person who was undecided in this case who said that they could not in good conscience convict Michael Slager of either murder or manslaughter. But today, because of their notes, it really seems like there were several people who were kind of at a point where they couldn't make their decision. It was uncertainty from the beginning, and a lot of what we were discussing today, a lot of the questions that came up would lend itself to that explanation, that they were really uncertain about what exactly they were deciding upon. The difference between manslaughter and murder is something that was brought up, and that, you know, the defense and the prosecution felt had been explained in the charge, but they needed further explanation. And there came a point today where the jury just said, you know, that's pretty much it. And actually, we did head back to court just a short while before they did come in and declare that they could not come up with a verdict. And the defense tried to offer further explanation, even past the 6 or so questions that were addressed earlier on today by the judge and by the courtroom, both prosecution and defense. He wanted a little bit more clarification, even more to send back to the jury, but the judge said that would be misleading. And just moments later, they came back and said, you know what? We can't come up with a verdict. So there seems to be a lot of confusion, and there's one thing that the judge did say, that he doesn't want to further confuse the jury at all. So at this point, we're just waiting to see who comes down. We're expecting to hear from both the prosecution and the defense in this case.
And this, of course, is going to continue as we speak about a timeline. Let's bring back in Garrard Fraser, because I'm interested to know a timeline for this as far as what's next and when we move forward now that a mistrial has been declared. When the chances of a new trial happening?
Well, the solicitor has a lot on her plate. The roof trial is coming up, as we spoke about earlier, in January. So there's going to be some time to schedule and get the courts prepared and give the teams time to regroup. And I think if they're going to do a retrial, it'll be a couple months out, maybe the spring or summer next year.
We had we spoke to a woman who represented Black Lives Matter on the phone on Friday. Yes. During the 5 o'clock hour. She seemed very angry. She very much wanted a guilty verdict in the murder charge, and was very upset about the makeup of this jury. As a member of the African American community, where does the community stand on this mistrial today, do you think? And if there was a message that you would give to Black Lives Matter, and I'm asking you now to kind of step out of your role as a lawyer, if you feel comfortable doing that, about what would be said.
I think that there is a lot of heartache and tension because, you know, people wanted to feel like, after seeing what they saw on TV, after seeing what they saw in the courtroom, that it would have either been a quicker coming to a decision or, you know, a guilty verdict on at least the manslaughter charge. But the people of Charleston don't have a history of being riotous and, you know, taken to the streets. We have a history of working together and trying to make a difference. And I think through our leaders and our local community, we will continue to work to make sure that things like this don't happen again.
Hey there, Dean. You know, Pastor Dixon says he's not so happy about how this turned out. I'm going to turn it to him so he can let you know exactly how this feels now that we finally do have an answer that maybe isn't the best answer, but still an answer in this case. Pastor Dixon, were you expecting an actual a guilty or a not guilty today?
Yes, I was. I really don't understand the outcome of today. Given the evidence, given the overwhelming evidence, believe what your eyes see evidence. I did figure that actually last Friday we were going to get a verdict, a conviction of some sort, either in the murder or manslaughter. And then having to go back in today with further deliberations, I totally figured that at the end of the day we were going to see that conviction come one way or another. I don't understand it.
And how do you think this community is going to deal with this mistrial?
As always, as being a man of peace, I'm always going to call for peace. But at this point, I can't really say. I really can't say. It's time for our society, our system, to understand that the people need to get something in the win column when it comes to these officer-involved shootings. We can't keep looking consistently at L's, at losses, and the frustrations that are associated with them. And then we ask the people to remain calm, to remain peaceful. And then law enforcement will come to us and say, well, community activists, can you help us keep the calm and get them to help us out? How can we do it when we never get them, when the people never see a win, especially one where the evidence clearly shows that this man murdered another man?
Now, does it make a difference to you, in your opinion, that this was so close to a guilty verdict? On Friday, we were looking at 11 for a conviction and 1 that could not in right conscience convict. Does it make a difference that most of these jurors, at least it seemed before the weekend, were going in the direction of, you know, he didn't do the right thing?
I had that question asked of me earlier, and I must say that Friday was for me an encouragement in South Carolina to have 11 who were saying we need to convict and 1 that said that we don't need to. That's something that's unusual for this state. So I pray that that we're moving in the right direction of fairness and equality for all. We have our children pledge that allegiance. We teach them early in life about liberty and justice for all, but the reality is every day our children and our adults see that justice is not for all. And what we saw today inside of the four walls of this courtroom bears witness that justice is not for all. But I do believe that we're moving in the right direction. On that line, I'm totally optimistic. On what happened today, my optimism got set back a bit.
All right, let's take our other camera shot and look at Chris Stewart, family attorney.
Long 5 weeks and a missed opportunity for justice. Missed opportunity to heal a lot of wounds in this country. Missed opportunity to remind the good officers that put on that badge that they aren't Michael Slager. But if you thought that we were going to come out here crying or weeping or weak, you don't know the Scott family, who have become my family. You don't understand that the fight isn't over. That was round 1. We've got 2 more rounds to go. The solicitor is trying this case again as soon as she can. The DOJ is trying this case as soon as they can. He may have delayed justice, but he did not escape it. We all saw what he did. We all saw what happened. But that's the justice system. One person or 2 people can disagree. We don't know the details of what the jury makeup was or what the decision was. We'll find that out to forestall any comments about that or any questions about that. But it doesn't matter, because our faith is unwavering, our knowledge of what happened is unwavering, and Michael Slager will face justice in this. We aren't worried. We don't need to scream or shout, because we know that it's coming. It's just been delayed. So think what you want, that the fight is over, but it's not. It's simply been delayed. Anthony Scott would like to give some remarks, and Miss Judy Scott, his mother.
I would like to say good evening to all of you. And today, I'm not sad. And I want you to know why I'm not sad. Because Jesus is on the inside. And I know that justice will be served, because the God that I serve, he's able. He told me to wait on the Lord and be of good courage. And God, he is strengthening my heart. God is my strength, and I know without a doubt that he is a just God, and injustice will not prevail. The God I serve, I know he's able. We are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses from days past and gone. And what God did for them back then, he'll do the same for me. I trust God. I believe God. I am encouraged, because I know God is able. He will get his just reward. And we have the federal trial and another trial to go. I'm just waiting on the Lord. I'm just going to rest in the Lord. I'm going to rest in the Lord, because you see, the reason why I can speak like I am, because the joy of the Lord is my strength. And I have been born again. I've been washed in the blood of the Lamb. And there's something about Jesus when he's on the inside. I fear not. I don't care what man say. I don't care how it looks. It's not over. Y'all hear me? It's not over. Till God say it's over.
back. Justin Bamberg of Bamberg Legal. You know, you just heard some very, very strong and powerful words from Miss Judy Scott, and I think that that sums up how the entire family feels about this moment. You know, yeah, we wish the outcome may have been different, but at the end of the day, this is just another step in the process, and we all know that at the end of the day, justice will be had. You know, one thing that we've learned throughout this entire process is it doesn't really matter how many times you get knocked down. Just make sure you land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. And this is an example that moving forward, we'll continue looking up, and we'll continue to take things day by day. And we know that at the end of the day, justice will be had, because oftentimes what's done in the dark comes to the light. And thanks to Heaton Santana, we've seen the light. And there is no way at the end of the day that former Officer Michael Slager can escape what's coming to him. And that is a conviction, and that is prison time.
After what you heard on Friday, this lone juror saying that he could not morally convict the officer.
Let's go ahead and send things now live to our Angela Brown, who is inside the courtroom when that decision was handed down by the judge to declare a mistrial. Angela?
That's right. I was inside the courtroom when the judge declared a mistrial. At that moment, I looked over at the jury members just to, gauge their reaction. Of course, there's no way to tell what's going through someone's mind, but I can tell you visibly what I saw. It seems like the jury members, as the judge read a mistrial, many of them were just sitting straight, looking stoic to some degree. I did see one jury member. She had a Kleenex in her hand, and she was wiping her eyes, maybe crying, but she was wiping her eyes. But for the most part, the jury, during the time that the judge declared a mistrial, they were intently looking and listening in the direction of the judge, did not show very much emotion. I did see emotion, though, when the prosecutor was talking, and when she mentioned the grace of the Walter Scott family. I did see a couple of jurors kind of shake their head in agreement to what she was saying. Also, during the time that the judge declared a mistrial, I did also glance over to the family of Walter Scott. I saw his mother. She had her arm wrapped around a family member to console that family member. I also saw maybe 2 or 3 family members moments after the judge declared a mistrial, walk out of the courtroom. I also heard a member of the family say, "It ain't over." That's what I heard someone say in the courtroom. And I believe that sentiment kind of carried over to outside here, to the press conference that took place as we covered, that you heard regarding the family of Walter Scott, their family members, the mother talking. We heard from her. I believe someone there said she took folks to church, and she did. She was very emotional, very passionate when we heard from her during that press conference. But overall, just getting the sense from the people who we've talked to, who we've seen, at least from, as we heard from the Walter Scott family, this is just one piece of the puzzle. There's obviously more court cases to come, the federal trial. So we're out here standing still, waiting to hear from Andy Savage and the rest of the defense team as they come out. But as I said, during inside the courtroom, as they were reading the mistrial, that the judge had declared a mistrial, very different emotions, obviously, from the juror than the Walter Scott family. Back to you.
Let's stick with you, Lara. Walking up behind you is Sheriff Al Cannon. If you want to chat with him to your left side, bingo.
Sheriff Al Cannon, how are you? Sorry.
Hey, Jason.
So, how are you feeling about all this?
Well, my concerns as a sheriff has been focused on and our unique role, and that is to provide for security in and around the courthouse. Mm-hmm. So we've been concentrating on that and making sure that this takes place in safety, and we've done that.
What do you think, this is one thing that I've been kind of considering, what do you think this verdict, this mistrial or lack of verdict, says to law enforcement in this area? I mean, a lot of people contend, who I've spoken to, say, you know, he was doing his job. What does that say to law enforcement, to your people out here?
Well, I think anybody that is looking at this outcome would be incorrect in drawing any real conclusions from the outcome. That's very difficult. Both sides will have an opportunity, the attorneys will have an opportunity to try, if the jurors won't, to try to get some feedback. Solicitor Wilson advised them of that when she spoke to them last in the courtroom. But beyond that, I think it would be a mistake for anybody to really draw any conclusions about what the message sends. I think it's hard to speculate on that.
Because at this point, we don't know what the jury's decisions were individually, right?
Right. They had different choices and really don't know what, beyond the notes that they sent out and the topics that they listed, we don't know what really occurred inside the jury room as they were deliberating. But I think both sides, and they have indicated as such, feel that the jury was very attentive, very committed, and I don't think anybody is displeased with the effort that the jury made.
Now, one thing...
That is our process, though. The verdict has to be unanimous, and regardless of who that is, and that has... That's the way the process works.
Now, I have seen you here in court throughout this trial. Have you ever, at any point, feared for the safety of your officers?
No, I have not. We have had very close working relationship with the prosecution, the Scott family, their attorneys, community leaders that were with them speaking. We have had a lot of interaction with them. There has been nothing since this trial started that gave me any real concern in that regard.
If you're just joining us, a mistrial declared in the murder case of Michael Slager.
We want to send things out now live to our Alex Heaton. She also is at the courthouse following the latest developments tonight. Alex?
Hey, Dean, Ashley, after 22 hours of deliberation, we now know that it is a mistrial, like you guys just mentioned. And I want to talk to you about the jurors in the case, the people that are tasked with determining innocence versus guilt. Those in this case that we know on Friday, that one holdout sent an emotional plea to the judge himself, saying he simply couldn't convict, but he expressed his deepest sympathy for the Scott family. Now, we know today inside that courtroom when the mistrial was announced, a few jurors rather, visibly emotional, wiping tears from their eyes. This took a toll on them, and you could tell inside that courtroom today what a grave task it was they were dealt in deciding Michael Slager's innocence or guilt in this case, ultimately declaring a mistrial. We heard moments ago from the Walter Scott family, and they said, especially at this time of year, we're gearing up for Christmas, and they said that to them, Michael Slager gets to go home and spend Christmas with his family, but Walter will not be there on Christmas Day. They are still hoping for justice in this case, and they hope that it will come, and they hope that society will recognize the need for change in this case, the need to show when a law enforcement officer is right in using excessive force. We spoke with Justin Bamberg, the Walter Scott family attorney, who said that, you know, it's up to representatives and society to come together and to really push for change and to show when it's acceptable rather, for a law enforcement official to use excessive force. In this case, they said, you know, maybe one shot was okay, but when was that line crossed? 1 shot, 2 shots, all the way up to 8 shots, and they're really hoping for another shot at this and hoping that justice will prevail. And of course, we're going to be out here all night, so we'll have the latest coming up for you throughout the show. Dean, Ashley.
Let's go ahead and get to some statements tonight. The first one that we want to share with you is from Solicitor Scarlett Wilson, or actually this is from Mayor Tecklenburg, the city of Charleston. He's writing in this afternoon saying, quote, "I am deeply disappointed by the jury's inability to reach a unanimous verdict. Despite that disappointment, I also understand that justice is not always delivered by a single jury in a single courtroom on a single day. Justice is often a journey. New juries will be given an opportunity to render a verdict on his actions."
And within the last 30 minutes, we also received a statement from Solicitor Scarlett Wilson. Of course, she prosecuted this case. She said the Scotts have been a sterling example of dignity and grace in extraordinary circumstances. This is a very difficult time for them, but I have no doubt they will continue to support our efforts to find justice for this case. While I cannot overstate our disappointment that this case was not resolved, I commend those who sacrificed so much time, energy, and effort to serve on this jury, and we will try Michael Slager again.
We did ask North Charleston Mayor Keith Summey for an interview tonight. However, he declined to go on camera. You may recall his city is where this shooting happened. He says, quote, "In April of 2015, Michael Slager was arrested and charged with murder. Since that time, the case has remained outside of the city's jurisdiction and within the judicial process. Until a final decision is rendered, the city of North Charleston and Mayor Summey will continue to refrain from commenting or discussing the case."
All right, we want to continue our coverage of the Michael Slager trial, declared a mistrial earlier in the day. Right now, we want to turn our attention back out to the courtroom in the courthouse, where ABC News 4's Alex Heaton is standing by with Police Chief Greg Mullen.
Hey, Dean, Ashley here, joining me now, like you just mentioned, Chief Greg Mullen. I want to talk to you first, your thoughts in the outcome of this case.
Well, you know, we've been here for 5 weeks. When we started, we asked the community to work with us, and I just want to thank them for allowing us to get through this 5 weeks. It's been very difficult, and I think that we have done it in a way that has provided for the justice system to operate safely and the city to go on its business normally. So I think it's important for me to thank the community for working with us during this time, because it could have been much more difficult. And obviously, you know, today what's happened is there's a stop on a journey. There's going to be another trial. There's going to be a second trial here. And so what I want people to understand is that this isn't the end. You know, there's not a reason to be thinking that nothing else is going to happen here, and that's important for people to understand. And the other thing I think is that, you know, there's going to be people who, you know, have heightened emotion, very frustrated, very disappointed, and we all understand that, and that there might be those folks that want to express that in an open and a public way, and we want to work with them if they decide to do that. If they decide to demonstrate or protest in the city, we really would like for them to give us a call so we can work with them so that they go through the process legally, and that we don't have any issues there that could cause harm to them or anybody else. Because one of the things that we've been saying all along is that, you know, Charleston is our home. We had a hashtag that said, "Charleston, this is our home." And, you know, lots of places around the country that have had demonstrations that have turned violent and destructive, they've torn up their homes. And we've been through a lot of things here in the last 2 years. We've been through a lot of horrific events, and the community has pulled together. They've demonstrated grace, forgiveness, and unity. And we hope that that's what we continue to see as we go through this process, because, again, as I said, this is just a stop on a journey, and we'll be back here doing this again.
All right. And, you know, obviously some security concerns coming into this, but so far everything has gone smoothly out here.
Everything has gone extremely smoothly. And, again, that goes back to the community. I mean, the people that we've communicated with very early, we brought clergy and community leaders in, and we talked with them and explained what we were going to be doing and how we were going to be monitoring this area. And we could not have asked for more cooperation and more understanding, not only of the people who have been in and out of the trial, but the people who have been traversing the area conducting business. So we are very thankful to the community, as we have been throughout these tragedies for their leadership, for their cooperation, and I just anticipate that will continue as we make our way down this journey.
All right, thank you so much, Chief Mullen.
Okay.
Dean Ashley, you heard it from the chief here. Some security concerns going into this, but so far we've seen it out here. It's been nothing but smooth sailing really out here with regards to people gathering around the courthouse, some Black Lives Matters protesters, but very quiet out here, and he anticipates that quietness moving forward if this case and when this case is retried. Dean Ashley.